All right, stock pilot. So moving forward, for the sake of keeping this interactive, so what comes to mind when you think of an investment options available to anyone? What do you guys think? Anything typically hear of or invest in yourself?
You got like
Generally,
passive
yeah,
vehicles.
or they're not available at all.
Right, passive I think is definitely a big one. I think index funds I think is probably a pretty popular term there. Probably most of you are familiar with. So with that, what we're going to do actually, before I go through this, so we'll first take a look at traditional institutions, kind of what they offer, and then we'll give a comparison. So with traditional institutions, like we said, so a lot of them offer index funds or mutual funds. Pretty much you'll have a collection of different stocks. They'll all track to a certain index or sector, for example, technology, and it'll kind of even out your returns. This is good because it's relatively safe. And additionally, it allows you to keep fees low because they're not actively managed. With that, a lot of the bigger firms, your Vanguard, your BlackRock, stuff like that, they do focus on stocks, bonds, and cash as their main asset type. So we'll talk about some of the asset types we use a little bit later on with that. And a lot of people see these investments through their retirement accounts. So excellent ways to save money. So a lot of people, you might have an employer sponsored 401k. That's great. Your employer is going to match that. You should definitely maximize your contribution there. A lot of times these retirement accounts are invested in index funds or something else that's passive. Might even be like a target date fund, something like that. But case in point, they are all passive investments, or typically passive investments that are tracking to a specific index. So with that, especially times like now, economic recession, when you see a downturn, a lot of times you'll see the value of your investments decrease. Now this happens, all things in investment is cyclical, but your kind of only option here is to ride this out until the market takes another upturn. So with that, it may be valuable, especially in times like these, to consider other investment alternatives. So that's what we'll look at. I guess next question, we'll kind of bring this back to the audience here. So, if you guys have any investments right now, do you know if you're negative or positive? And with that, I mean like for 2022, this year specifically.
Dead negative.
Negative.
Yeah,
thought that might be the case. So with that, right, here's a quick screenshot of the S&P 500. This is a pretty common index. This is from back a little bit ago in October. It's still pretty much the same, but you can see year to date, we're actually down negative 23% on the year. So that's a significant amount of wealth that has been wiped away there. So with that, where does Stockpilot come in, and what are we kind of trying to do to help with that? So let's go through here. So fill opportunity gaps left by traditional financial institutions. Specifically, we're trying to provide hedge fund-like strategies to the common investor. So for one thing, making it more accessible to actively manage investment strategies, as well as access to other types of asset classes, which we'll get to later, but for example, options or futures. Their potential to be more cost effective. And then with that, with the Stockpilot platform, we're offering a flat subscription fee per month. So a lot of times you'll see, if you went out and did want something actively managed and found a personal advisor, they're going to charge you basis points or a percentage or something like that. So we're trying to make this, as accessible as possible to the common investor is the idea there. And then with that, we'll look at how some of these strategies also are able to profit despite, market conditions like the recession we're currently in. So with that, back to the audience. Has anyone here ever traded an option contract? Yes, we got one thumbs up. Has anyone heard of an option contract?
Yes.
A little bit. Yeah. Can I ask what your impression of them is, or what you've heard? Kind of any experience there?
Huge unprotected downside.
Okay, sure. That is true. Cool. So there's actually, I think there are a lot of uses for them. I'm not exactly the trader, so I'll kind of defer to that in a little bit here. But I'll give a quick explanation about what an option is before we do that. So what is an option? So a derivative financial instrument based on the value of the underlying security, for example, a stock. With that, it provides an opportunity without an obligation to buy or sell referring to a call contract or a put contract, respectively. And with that, each of these contracts, they have a specific expiration date by which they need to be used. The point there is that they do require active management, because once they expire, they're considered worthless. Right. So with that, with options trading, there are risks associated with that. It is much more risky than traditional stock trading. These prices move very quick. There's a lot of volatility, and it is possible to lose your entire investment. That being said, when used properly, they're actually quite advantageous. So more to come there. So strategies, and this is where we're going to pull in our special guest here, Lazaro Gari, who's actually one of our registered pilots here. So pretty excited to have you here. I'll let him kind of explain the financial side of things and how he uses options to kind of benefit us. But Laz, for you, I have 3 bullet points here. Personal background, then we'll take a look at your past 12 months performance, and then kind of most interestingly, I think, is how are options utilized to be more effective during the current economic conditions. So Laz.
Yeah, thanks Chuck and Jackson for having me on today, and thank you folks for coming along. Name's Lazaro Gari, and I've been with Chuck, Jackson since well, quite a while now. I want to say it's well over a year. I've been on with them for this ride, and I'm quite excited for it. A bit about myself: I've been in the finance and specifically in the investment side, buy side and sell side, going all the way back to 2006. So on and off, I've worked for either Ameriprise, I've worked for T. Rowe Price. I did about an 8-9 year stint where I lived in China, and became very familiar with international, specifically currencies. Foreign exchange always really drew me. So that kind of became my forte, if you will, or just one of the areas that I personally value very much. And really right around 2020, which I believe a lot of people kind of took it amongst themselves to go into trading on their own. Really, it was at that point where I did, in fact, realize that all of the amazing investment tools that institutional traders had available to them are, for the most part, available to everyday people, and more so to traders. So it made it a lot easier for folks like myself, who didn't have to work for an institution and could easily trade at home. Now, I will say, trading isn't for everybody. It's an extremely difficult venture, and it certainly takes years and years of know-how. It doesn't matter how many books you read, it really comes down. There's just no book out there that can teach risk management, and that is only learned through experience and really just kind of getting punched in the face a variety of times as a trader and getting back up. That's kind of where you learn it. And over that time, I managed to learn to trade more so in a style and fashion that's fitting of hedge funds and well, a lot of these top-down global macro firms out there. And options are certainly one of the many tools that are available, that are used frequently. And unfortunately, I think as Christopher there was saying, they do have a bit of a negative stigma. There's a bit of, I don't know, bad mojo around how and why options, why people don't get into them. Yes, they're complicated, and also they don't move exactly like the stock or the asset you're buying. But I think that's where gents like Jackson and Chuck and their idea of putting together Stock Pilot really becomes great for everybody, because I strongly believe, and I think that one of the main reasons I wanted to take on this with Chuck and Jackson is, you know, after 2008 and after, well, I mean, several other events that have occurred, I do feel that the everyday person should have the same access to the kinds of investment vehicles that the whales, if you will, have, and yet they don't need to go about it with $20 million, which is very standard for hedge funds and what they're asking for. You don't need that. You can exercise leverage with an experienced trader with a much smaller account and get the kinds of gains that, well, quite frankly, you're simply not going to get simply by investing in, you know, mutual funds and stocks and, you know, I would say index funds to some extent. I do trade in index funds, but I'll get into how I do so. Yeah, so did you guys want me to get into the specifics of the instruments I trade, or how did you want me to?
I mean, I'll leave that up to you. Personally, I like hearing you talk about how you trade. I think it's pretty neat, and it is on the more complex side. So, I mean, I think that would sound good. Yeah.
Well, yeah, great. And I'm gonna try to, you know, and please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. My style, my approach to investing is a bit different from most traders out there, and that's fine. I think that every trader should have their own way, should have their own focus. You know, you'll have a lot of crypto guys, you have a lot of stocks or equities, small caps, mid caps, so on and so forth. The approach I take is it's called a top-down global macro approach. And what that means is I'm mostly focused on essentially the G10, the you know 10 largest economies around the world and their currencies. So my trades do heavily, I would say over 50% of my current portfolio is relied on currencies, foreign exchange, and how they move about. The next, I would say, and it varies depending on the economic conditions that we're in. The next 30, you know, 35, 25, depending, like I said, is mostly in futures. I mostly trade futures contracts, and this became an instant, amazing option available to people. The CME group, which is, you know, they're essentially known for their futures contracts. They trade out of Chicago. They've created micro contracts, and this makes it essentially easy for anybody to get into the world of futures. Now, before futures, you know, you needed a pretty decent size account, and you know, one penny move could easily mean $10,000 just in like seconds. And there's not too many people out there that can handle that kind of a volatility. But with the introduction of micro futures, now we're talking about a one penny move that could cause your account to move by $10. You know, that's a huge difference. And so micro futures, in my opinion, is a game changer. And as of now, the CME group, the ones who created these contracts, have come out with, I want to say, about a little more than 10 different types of micro futures, but they're only getting started. Like, they've only rolled these micro futures out. The first one came out in 2017, and it was a micro of the S&P 500 futures contract. And then little by little, you know, they came out the NASDAQ and then the Russell 2000 and so on and so forth. The most recent one was copper, micro copper futures, which I absolutely love that they've rolled that out. And they still have plans. So they're going to roll out wheat, corn, soybeans, lumber is on the works. You know, all of these essential raw materials that fall under my scope of how I trade, given a top-down approach, are all going to be rolled out very soon by the CME group. And so, kind of getting ahead of myself with micro futures, but if as you can tell, I'm taking kind of like if you were to funnel it down, we're starting with currencies as 50% of my portfolio, and then we're narrowing it down to things like the broad equities. I trade the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Russell's 2000s, but I also mostly trade things like gold, oil, copper, as mentioned. And honestly, I work my way down from there. So to be perfectly honest, I'm not the kind of trader that you would go to if you're looking to invest in stocks, like just plain stocks, companies like Apple and Tesla. Honestly, I can't remember the last time I had money in stocks. The lowest I'll go on my funnel will be an ETF or options in an ETF for a particular sector and industry. Right now, for example, as narrow as I've gone, I'm in the home builders and mortgage rates ETFs, short, of course.
Laz, sorry to interrupt. It looks like we have a question actually from Theodore.
Great.
Yeah, Laz. So I just wanted to ask you a question. You said you're using the futures market to express your opinions on equities and some commodities. How are you? What instruments are you using to construct trades for currencies?
Spot currencies themselves. So like
spot. Okay.
Spot. However, there are also ETFs. So in the case of like TradeStation and with Stockpilot, I'll use ETFs that are based off of the spots. So like FXA, FXC, any of the FX. They have the British, the Euro, and of course the one that's pegged to the dollar. That's UUP. These are all ETFs that are a majority of their holdings are in spot currencies. It's a good question. So anyways, I think that I don't know, I pretty much kind of sums up. And again, it really comes down, I use options as well heavily. The kinds of options a lot that I learned from my experience. I rarely go into options contract naked. In other words, I'm just buying calls by themselves or puts by themselves, but I'm taking on a more complicated position where it's called a spread. So I'll go, for example, if I'm feeling like the S&P 500 is going to be going down to a certain level, I'll purchase 10 put contracts on that S&P, but to minimize the risk and to minimize the amount that I'm paying on that premium, I'm going to go short that same exact contract, but much further out of the money, using probabilities, historical volatility and implied volatility to determine, okay, there's a very, very low chance that by the time this contract expires, it's going to hit this amount. Okay. And so I'll short something way out there just to minimize that premium, which in essence, what it does is it boosts your risk reward. And this is essentially how the hedge funds go about, running their portfolios. They're using leverage. If I was going to sum up the difference between the everyday investor's approach to investing and essentially what Chuck and Jackson are trying to show everybody, with myself, and I know they have several other outstanding traders on their platforms, it's leverage, how to use leverage. And it's risky, very, very risky, but with experience comes very good risk reward and risk management. That's the biggest thing about a good trader, is knowing when to get out and when to stay on, and how much. Like every single trade that I place, I know exactly the amount I'm going to lose and exactly the amount I'm going to gain before I even place that trade. And that is effectively what a good trader will always, do.
Hey, Laz, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I've been looking for a while, just not got the courage up to jump in yet, but arbitrage specifically related to stocks that trade on multiple exchanges, some commodities that or commodity stocks that trade on multiple exchanges, but the arbitrage between the different exchanges, and then more specifically, the arbitrage between the dollar on the exchanges here in the States versus the exchanges like London, DAX, ASX. Have you looked at that specifically?
I know exactly what you're talking about. That type of arbitrage, though, it's essentially now completely done by artificial intelligence. You're talking about algorithms that are put together to find those arbitrage opportunities. Those arbitrage opportunities, back in the day, I would say before you had such a heavy influence of these bots that are now in the system, those arbitrage opportunities can be around for as much as a day or a week, and you can take advantage of those. But what you're referring to, where there's a difference in the dollar, a difference in equities, those differences last for seconds before the algorithms jump in and take those out. So if that is something you're interested in, I would say that there's no manual or real just human trader that takes advantage of that. Those are all done by the AI now.
Well, we're seeing an enormous amount in the energy space.
Sure.
I mean, and some of these things have been going on for weeks. They're not being bought up, and I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense.
Which
Look at
specific-
ITM.
Say again?
ITM.
No, but I mean, which indexes or
Just
exchanges?
between the London Exchange and the NASDAQ here with ITM Power.
Mhm.
There's just been a constant discrepancy between the valuation of the shares, and it's reflected even in the market cap of the company. I don't understand how that works.
Mhm.
But more specifically, if you're buying using dollars to buy that difference, the arbitrage in London and in sterling, it's even more pronounced. So I'm just curious, there has to be, and I've not figured out the mechanism, and I'm assuming that there has to be some way to do that with futures and options where you can, like I say, it's been going on for a while. This is nothing new.
Yeah.
We've seen it in a couple of other companies as well. But they're primarily in the power space, and that's where I live. So
Right. Yeah, that's something you can easily. Well, I wouldn't say it's easy to do.
yeah, no, let's not go there. It might be easy for you, but it sure as hell ain't.
No,
for me.
it's that's not in any way. That's not my forte. But I know traders who were in the energy space, and they were exercising a lot of forward and futures contracts for the large oil and gas companies out of Houston. I'm actually in Houston, so we have a lot of the energy traders here who will spend their entire time, and they're making quite a lot of windfall profits from, I think, exactly what you're mentioning, but it was more so a hedge. So they're mostly protecting themselves from future increases in costs. But what you're talking
I was kind of
about.
hoping Stockpilot would help, would help figure some of these things out. Was the idea there?
Well, the question is, and again, I don't know, because Stockpilot trades, or well, they're linked with TradeStation, and I don't know. Does TradeStation allow you to trade on multiple exchanges?
I believe you can. I believe you can specify the exact exchange that you want the order to be routed to. That is possible. Yep.
So, I mean, if that's something and then again, I wouldn't do it, but maybe you could find someone who specializes in that. But yeah, you would definitely have somebody who would more than likely, if there's that kind of an arbitrage opportunity, you can use an options contract. But now here's the thing, in London, they don't have options. They don't use options. They I can't remember now the name of it. It's similar to an option, but I can't remember the name of what they call it over there. So actually, I don't even know if you'd have to use futures, because that certainly trades in London. So you would go long in the US and then short in the UK, or vice versa, whatever the arbitrage. Yeah.
Exactly.
But again, those markets move really fast. Like it's
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that if you could create a system to automate that, could you?
Yeah, automation is the only way.
Right.
You would definitely need somebody who would create some kind of an automated way of doing that, but that's not my thing. You're going to need essentially one of those coders to do that for you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate the question, Laz. I think you said it all. I mean, a lot of that goes a bit over my head, but I mean, I think you can see the difference between what you're going to get with a passive investment versus something like, Laz here, who's doing all this active research and management. So it's quite impressive, and thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Cool. So moving on, in regards to Stockpilot, right? How does it work? How do we take someone like Laz and offer this as a subscription to the common investors so that they can get in on some of the action? So with that, I'm actually going to do this a little informally. I'll just share my screen, walk you through a few of the dashboards, and show you what it looks like. So let's give me one moment here. So here you can see I'm logged in, stockpilot.app. So there's basically two roles, if you will, with this. On one side, we have what we refer to as a pilot, someone like Laz who has the experience. And then on the other side, we have subscribers where you can subscribe to the strategy. So I'll keep this relatively brief. You can see that they have a dashboard here where they're able to input their strategies specifically with options here. So you can see the type, call, put, strike, etc. The ability to add legs. So, Laz, you mentioned spreads, quote data, the various order types and stuff like that. And then on this side over here, it looks pretty normal for anyone that's traded before, I guess, but, positions, you can see this actually provides some like group level data here across subscribed accounts. So Laz can effectively run those orders. And then you got orders here, which kind of does the same thing. And then finally memberships for anyone that's signed up here. So this is where Laz would be, he does his research, submits his orders all through this dashboard here. So on the flip side, I'll sign out and I'll just show you what that looks like. So if you were to sign up, you would be granted a similar, not really similar, but you'd be granted a dashboard of your own where you're able to come in and configure your own personal trade automation. So basically what this does is as Laz trades on his dashboard, the system will take that information and pretty much just copy it through any subscriber's account. Now you get into some issues, with different account sizes and buying power and stuff like that. But basically for each subscribed account, they're able to come through and configure their automation. So first, very simple, they can just turn it on and off if they wanted to execute or not. And then second is position sizing. So say, Laz buys one contract, he has a $100,000 account. Say you had $200,000. There's a few ways you can kind of utilize that additional capital depending on the feature you select here. So I'll run through these pretty quickly. So copy directly. This would just copy the position sizing directly from whatever Laz is doing. So there's an account minimum with that. So pretty much the sizing would be relative to that. This auto scaling feature is where you're going to take advantage of any additional funds. So this is that scenario where, say, your account is twice as large, you're going to open a position that is also twice as large. So with that, you can kind of set a few options, either use your full account towards that strategy or set a specific strategy amount from your brokerage account, whatever you want to do. And then finally, trade override. If you wanted to, I don't know why, but if you wanted to override and set an explicit dollar amount for the trade, you can do that as well. For me, I think auto scaling is the most useful. I mean, obviously Laz is the trader. He kind of knows what he's doing as far as risk management and stuff like that goes. So that would probably be where my mindset is at. And with that, you're able to log in and you can view positions and orders. So, if Laz is trading from the day to day, you can log in, check your account value, see any positions and see what he's trading, and actually maybe start to learn from that, right? Get some exposure, which you don't always get from the traditional investments you might see. So that's really kind of the core.
Chuck, back
yeah.
up 1 second to so there's three different opportunities. The first is copy direct,
Yep.
which is you're doing exactly what he's doing, but do you have to have the exact same amount of money in the market?
So you don't have to, but there is an account minimum. So if you were to sign up, Laz has a minimum, and that's because of the positions he's buying. So there's a certain cost, and you need a certain amount of capital in order to properly and safely take on that risk. So say you had an account that was a similar size to his, you could use the copy directly, and it would just copy the position, really just the quantity 1-for-1 directly from his, and your risk would be the same as exactly what Laz is doing.
So the auto scale is where if he's got 100,000 and I got 10, it would just replicate on a percentage basis.
That's correct. Yep, that's correct. So for the downward scaling, it actually uses a pretty much a default value. It'll set like a standard position size that's relative to that, usually around 5 or 10%, something like that. And then the scaling upwards will go. So if you have twice as much, it'll kind of double that in that type of scenario. But yeah, that's generally the idea. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. Good question. Thank you. Right. So pretty much that's it. The idea here is to keep it as simple as possible for subscribers. So, log in, turn it on, set it to copy direct or auto scale, and then you can kind of sit back, let Laz kind of work his magic and kind of reap those benefits. And then with that, Jackson, thank you for reminding me. So there is one additional feature here too. So this is in the form of SMS alerting. So for the sake of just transparency and kind of staying in the loop with the strategy, there's actually two features here. So one is just generalized SMS alerts. So anytime an action is taken on your account, if you have this toggled on, this will actually send you a text message that will give you specific order information about what Laz bought or sold or whatever he did. Again, just for the sake of keeping you in the loop. And then also related to that is this require SMS confirmation. So this is similar in that you'll get a text message, but this will also include a link that is unique to your account. And what will happen is this will require you to click the link to authorize the trade. So this is, if you didn't want them to run, I guess, fully automate it through, you wanted to kind of confirm, kind of see what he was trading, you would turn this on. You could click the link and then confirm the order before it's placed, if that makes sense to everyone.
Can you fly with multiple pilots?
You can, but you will need to create a second account. That's for a few reasons. It's recommended to keep a separate brokerage account for each strategy. So you would go to TradeStation, open a second account, and then link that with the new strategy. I will say, as far as like creating or having multiple brokerage accounts for like tax purposes, when you get your reports at the end of the year, they combined all the information for you as one person and just share that as one report there.
And is this? And I promise this will be my last question. Is this
Quite all right.
if you're trading in multiple jurisdictions? Is this something that you can do cross-platform? Can I trade from an account in Australia or an account in the Caymans?
Okay. Sure. So that is a good question, actually. So right now we partner with specific brokerage houses. So at this point in time, there's actually two we work with. One is TradeStation, as Laz mentioned, and the other is Tradier. So without, proper like business partnerships with them and then an integration to support it technically, that would not be supported. But I do think there is international support with those brokerages for, people in those other countries. As far as like actually connecting to other brokerages, especially international ones, I mean, that's something definitely looking forward to, but will come sometime in the future.
Okay, but you are considering it. That's cool. Thank you.
I would like to keep growing for sure.
I was almost a year in Japan, and what was it, back in 2020? I was a year there, and I was able to use all the major brokerage houses, TradeStation, Interactive Broker, IG was the big one I used. But I've even while I was in China, I was able to trade with my personal account, and they're extremely restrictive, and I was able to do that with a VPN. So.
And there's just the reason I was asking. I mean, there's a lot of things I can do from Australia that I can't do from the States.
Sure. Yeah.
Interesting. That makes sense. Cool. Good questions. Yeah, definitely feel free to ask more. So, all right, so you've seen the trader dashboard, you've seen the subscriber dashboard. The goal of this to make it as easy as possible for a subscriber to get into, these types of strategies. And then there is one last major component to this, which is we refer to this as our publicly listed pilots. So with that, if you're interested, you can see here some of our traders that are registered. And I think the kind of cool thing, at least I think the cool thing here is something we're working on is a investment performance analytics system. So basically, as Laz trades on the platform, all the data from his trades is being collected. Anytime he clicks a button, it's pretty much saved to a database, and then we're able to process that information and look at his investment performance. So this is to help any potential subscribers. If they're looking to sign up, they can view just highest level ROI. It's a time weighted return, a relative benchmark. So say you compared it to like the S&P 500, just as an example, and then a risk ratio, pretty much how much I guess volatility was involved with him reaching those gains that you might see. So as stated, that is something we're currently working on. That will be live around the end of the year. It's in progress, almost done. But with that, if you were interested, a lot of these third parties like Laz, for example. So if you were going to subscribe, you would come here and this subscribe button will actually take you to his third party website. And the cool thing here is he actually has his performance posted. So here you can see Laz, and I'll just reference this, right? So this is the past 12 months of performance. So you're not really missing anything while this development's kind of in action. You can actually just come here and see, the gains that he's made here. Pretty
Sweet.
Useful. Yeah. Pretty cool. And if we just kind of scroll across here, this is the last 12 months. Actually, I was going to see if you wanted to explain this, Laz, kind of little average here and then this drop here, and then you kind of keep on going up. I just wanted to have, if you want to.
Gains and losses. That drop there was a reshuffling because I went from having all of my brokerage assets with Interactive Broker and then moving it over to IG, which is a Globex. It's a global, trading brokerage house. So that tracks right there, though. With that, it wasn't like a bad trade or anything, though. As you can see, like any trader, there's definitely gains and losses. So far, though, that seems about right. I think this is one of the more recent performances that I put in there. Annualized return about 42% to the upside, and then I think the S&P is down pretty significantly this year. But again, if you're only going in one direction, that's definitely going to be the case. So those gains are all from. So far I'm completely bearish. So they're all shorts. They're all puts. The only thing I'm long right now is the dollar, and so a lot of that came from, trading the dollar versus other currencies, especially the yen, up to a certain point when they started intervening, and then I, backed off there. But this past year, it's been the story of the dollar, and so that big jump up you see that started right around August, roll all the way through to mid October. That was fueled almost entirely by the dollar's run with all the other major currencies, and then of course being short the indexes was also a really good trade for me this year. Yeah.
Got a question from the crowd here, Laz. So for long, on average, for how long on average do you stay in a position? Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not a day trader. I don't get in and out of positions. Like, I know there's a lot of traders out there who have the time and the nerve. that can be very, very frustrating to do 20, 30 trades a day. I'm holding positions anywhere between 3 days to as long as a month. On average, my positions, I hold them for about 6 to 8 days, and weekly I'm trading. So far, I've looked at my numbers. I'm averaging about 6 trades a week, but sometimes it could be as low as 1 to 2 trade, and I'll just sit and hold that for a good week or two. I tend to hold options positions for minimum 2 weeks. So when I get into options, I'm careful. Options have quite a bit of a higher expense to them than if you're trading just ETFs or even futures for that matter. So I'm careful to swing trade the options, but that's mostly my strategy. I'm so far this year's and this last quarter recently, there's a lot of swing trading going on. Haven't seen too much momentum for any one asset out there, but yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, and like I said, anywhere between 3 days to a month.
Cool. Yeah, it was a good question. Any other questions actually before we move on? We're almost done actually too. So just to recap, I guess from the dashboard. So kind of our goals from a technology perspective. So simple interface for both the traders and the subscribers. Features to configure the trades of any complexity. The SMS notifications and confirmations to keep the subscribers in the loop. And then finally, trade analytics to track the performance so that our subscribers can make informed decisions. And with that, I'll just conclude at the highest level. So again, what we're trying to do here is fill the gap left by traditional institutions, especially by providing, access to actively managed strategies from people like Laz, as well as the access to other asset types that aren't typically offered. So if you want to maximize your retirement, you may want to consider some additional or alternative investment strategies in addition to your 401k. Of course, you would want to keep that with your employer contribution. And then we hope to achieve these goals with simplicity, effective features, and transparency. And that's our presentation. So if there's any other questions, feel free to jump in now.
Yeah,
I like it.
How do we start?
Yeah, I put a question in the chat. I was just wondering how many of you are using the broker platform, Interactive Brokers, and what your experience with the platform.
I still use Interactive Brokers, and I love their fee structures, but their platform is quite outdated.
Really slow.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about I don't use their platform if I'm, trying to dig in with some technical analysis, which I don't really. I'm more of a fundamental guy, but I have to use technical when I'm getting in and out. So I don't rely on them for that.
Okay.
Interesting. And then Vuk, how do we start? I love that one. So that pilots page will actually just navigate back there for you. So if you navigate to stockpilot.app, you'll be brought here, and then at the top you'll see this pilots menu item here. Just click that, and then you can scroll through, and you'll see Saddlebrook Funds is right here. If you click subscribe, that will take you over to his website, and then you can sign up somewhere on here. I don't know where exactly, but you can sign out. Automation, that makes sense, and you can sign up right here. So cool.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it. Laz, thank you so much.
Just sorry, quick question on. So looking at this page right now, so that's $250 every month. What does that mean?
Sure. So basically, you'll be billed $250 every month. So I think specifically with Laz's strategy, there's a $20,000 account minimum. I believe that's correct, and then there's a monthly charge of $250.
I see.
Yep. And with that, just to break it down a little bit, there's kind of two components of the fee. At the base, you have an automation fee. It's $100 that is sent to us as Stockpilot. And then additionally, you have the kind of membership or subscription fee for Laz's side of the service, which is, the difference there. That's just billed once here on the saddlebrookinvesting.com website, and then we invoice Laz later. So pretty much just one fee for you, and then that's a recurring subscription, kind of like a Netflix business type of model, if you will, subscription-based in automated investing. So
that's a flat fee. So basically, like if Laz trades 10 times more this month over last month and incurs additional trading costs, that's not going to be reflective in my fee, I guess.
That's correct, which is should be one of the benefits actually. So you're not being charged basis points nor any like performance related fees. It's just a flat monthly fee. You know what the fee will be. It won't change, you know, with performance or anything like that.
Which is truly a benefit because, you know, the way the fee structures that hedge funds operate, it's 220. So they keep 20% of the gains and then a 2% annual charge on the total of your account at the end of the year. So, you know, typically traders have like 1 or 2 months that are exceptional. And you know, most traders can account for this. You'll have a month or two where you're really bringing it in and you're talking about like above 70-80% gains in a month. And, you know, hedge funds will keep 20% of that, but you're still going to get charged that 250.
Got it. And then sort of related to that, like what are the tax consequences with this platform? Like how does it fit into the whole IRS grid of capital? Sorry for the background.
That's quite okay. That's also a very good question. So you'll be taxed with short-term small gains tax, I believe, which should equate to whatever your typical income tax bracket is. So with that, you'll create a brokerage account with the specific firm. And then at the end of the year, they'll issue you, I don't know the specific form, but they'll issue you the form indicating any realized gains, and then you'll be taxed short-term gains tax based on that.
And Chuck, related to that question, I actually wanted to mention that I'm planning, as we discussed, sometime next year, I'm going to also be including a subscription, a new tier, if you will, that is dedicated to retirement accounts. Retirement accounts, there's no tax on the gains, obviously, until you withdraw it when you're retired, of course. Though retirement accounts, they're a bit different in terms of what you can trade in them, you know. So we're kind of limited with the types of investments, complicated options contracts, and they do allow futures, but you can't go short in a retirement account. So it is something that I would like to consider in probably the beginning of 2023 to have also a mirroring an account that reflects that of the retirement accounts and what you can invest in a retirement account.
Yeah, definitely something we'll be working on.
Let me ask one last question. I'm out. How the hell did you guys decide? I mean, how did this come about? How did you guys?
Sure. So, I mean, so Jackson here, we have Jackson. So him and I have been friends since high school. I guess I'm like a technical background. I've been programming since I was younger. And then I worked at a financial company. I won't say what. And then meanwhile, I guess COVID happened. And he was part of a trading club and actually trying to do it. And, you know, it's tough. As Les said, it's very hard to do. And we kind of joined forces and figured, you know what, we have very skilled people, a small niche of them, but they're there. And then we have a lot of common investors who could really greatly benefit from this. And so here we are 2 years later.
Well, after this is over, send me another email and I'll repost this on my LinkedIn account.
Oh, that would be awesome, actually.
Yes, we can get you some other folks. I like what you're doing. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for your time.
Most appreciated. Thank you, Christopher.
See you guys.
Have a good day. Cool. Any other questions while we're here?
We're good.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your day.